It's a matter of faith for over 2 billion people. But, besides faith, did Jesus actually exist? Let's find out in this video. Welcome back to Ancient Insights, Gabriel here. Almost a third of humanity does not require proof that a man named Yeshua, or Jesus in other languages, and known to his followers as Christ, the Messiah, walked the earth 2,000 years ago. Beyond the private domain of belief, however, there is a wide expanse of area for investigation, which must find historical and scientific facts in order to answer a legitimate question. Did Jesus of Nazareth exist? Or, is Jesus' story based on a legend? The earliest literary allusions to him date from after his death. He first appears in St. Paul's letters, which were written between 20 and 30 years after the crucifixion. St. Paul never knew Jesus, although according to what Simon Gathercole, the New Testament studies specialist from the University of Cambridge, in United Kingdom, explains, he knew not only Jesus' disciples but also his brothers, in reference particularly to James the Just, whose kinship with Jesus is one of the points of disagreement between different Christian sects. The New Testament Gospels were written a few decades later, and they appear to contain first-hand accounts. Despite this, experts claim that just a few of them may be considered historically accurate. The only two incidents universally acknowledged, but not by all, are Jesus' baptism by John the Baptist and his crucifixion. According to Eric Myers, Professor Emeritus of Jewish Studies at Duke University in the United States, the crucifixion is safe, but the baptism is difficult to support or locate. However, for Byron McCain, archaeologist and historian of religions and Judaism at the Atlantic University of Florida, USA, both the baptism and the crucifixion are stories that the first Christians are unlikely to have invented, since neither of them supports their interests in any way, he asserts. The baptism shows Jesus to be a disciple of, and therefore inferior to, John the Baptist, and the crucifixion was a humiliating punishment reserved for criminals. What is the consensus among scholars? But the ancient references to Jesus are not just found in works by Christian authors, an argument that supports the historical authenticity of the character. According to McCain, Jesus is also mentioned in ancient Jewish and Roman sources. For example, about the year 93, the Pharisee historian Flavius Josephus included at least one unmistakable reference to the brother of Jesus, who was named Christ in his work Jewish Antiquities. Pliny and Tacitus wrote about Jesus 2 decades later. The latter explained that the founder of the Christian group was executed during Emperor Tiberius' mandate, when Pontius Pilate was in charge of Judea. In short, the availability of historical writings transforms the reality of Jesus into a wide and deep consensus among historians, according to McCain, irrespective of religious beliefs. I do not know, nor have I heard of, any trained historian or archaeologist who has doubts about his existence, he adds. With the weight of all these evidences, for Myers, those who deny the existence of Jesus are like the deniers of climate change. There is no archaeological evidence directly for Jesus, says the author, despite the fact that physical remnants are essentially non-existent. According to Gathercole, non-textual evidence begins around the year AD 200. There are several physical artifacts related with the crucifixion. Aside from archaeology referring to periods in Jesus' life, the truth of which is questioned. The number of alleged fragments of the cross scattered across churches in Europe is so large that Protestant theologian John Calvin said in 1543 that there are enough to fill a ship. A similar phenomenon has happened with the nails, which number up to 30. The shroud analysis, the Shroud of Turin, the burial shroud in which Jesus' body was claimed to have been wrapped, has been discovered to be a medieval forgery. According to McCain, it does not correspond to a first-century fabric. That type of cloth was invented centuries later, nor to a first-century man his stature and physiognomy do not match the average Galilee of the time, nor to a first-century burial the Jews of the time did not wrap their dead in a single piece of cloth, nor to a first-century burial the Jews of the time did not wrap their dead in a single piece of cloth. The shroud has also been subjected to a DNA study, which is one of the most recent procedures used in Jesus' historical research. A study published in 2015 discovered that the canvas has genetic material from people from all across the world, from Western Europe to the Near East, Arabia, and India. Naturally, there are no skeletal remains for a DNA analysis that can be directly attributed to Jesus, which would be incompatible with the Christian belief in his resurrection. According to tradition, the Emperor Constantine discovered and protected the place of burial in the 4th century, which is now housed in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Although it is hard to know whether or not that is the genuine tomb of Jesus, a research published last June dates the building to the 4th century, confirming historical evidence. However, as reported by the geneticist from the University of Oxford, United Kingdom, George Busby, and the biblical expert Joe Bazile in his documentary The Jesus Strand, A Search for DNA, 2017, some researchers have investigated the possibility of trying to compare DNA from two different sources. On the one hand, the presumed ossuary of James, the brother of Jesus; on the other, the bone fragments found under the ruins of a church on a Bulgarian island in the Black Sea, which could correspond to John the Baptist. If John and Jesus were related, a comparison of their remains could lead to a deeper look at Christ's genes. Perhaps this goal is unattainable since DNA taken from the remains attributed to John the Baptist revealed modern contamination for the time being. A DNA analysis, however, would allow researchers to compare contemporary populations and then to compare those populations, not individuals, to populations around today, according to Busby. While this would aid in determining the geographical origins of Jesus, it is unlikely to add much to the already established historicity of Jesus. Jesus in ancient Palestine was noble and changed the world for the better, Myers writes. And that is difficult, if not impossible, to deny.